So, hello everybody, or ciao a tutti, as we are in the wonderful Rome. 10 minutes are not enough to describe all the capabilities of NX generators, but my goal is to give you an overview of what we can do and how easy is it to work with the generators. My name is Francesco Leardini, and I was a principal consultant for Accenture, based in Zurich. I'm originally from a small town in front of the sea, and in the meantime, I moved to Switzerland, so I start loving Alps. Generators can be seen as a blueprint for our projects. We start scaffolding a new project. We have a lot of typical steps like configure, CI/CD, and a lot of other configuration files that we have to create every time. It's quite a boring task that we have to repeat more and more and more times. I don't know you, I hate having to do repetitive tasks. These can bring, for example, not only a lot of stress, like in the case of Marco, but also errors. Think about, we have a lot of teams in USA, Europe, in Asia, and we want to enforce naming conventions that all our projects follow the same architecture. And I can tell you, it's very, very hard. I used NX generators in 50 teams in the same company, and each of the team was creating or managing kind of 3 to 5 Angular applications. And thanks to NX generators, we were able to enforce some rules, so namings, conventions, architecture patterns, and so on. Otherwise, in a set of around 150, 180 applications between different teams, it's impossible to enforce those rules. Let's see now how we can create custom generators. First of all, we have to install the NX plugin package. This will allow us to create plugins. And this is a screenshot of the NX console. It's a very cool plugin that we can use for VS Code, for example. After that, we can invoke the command nxg, stands for generate, and then we generate a plugin with the name, in this case, demo plugin. This command creates a project with a specific structure. By default, also, a first default plugin is created for us. However, we can either extend this or simply create other custom ones with this command. So NX plugin generator, and then we give the name of our custom plugin, in this case, ng spa generator, because our goal, as we will see in the demo, is to create an Angular application with a lot of custom files. And then we target the project. Enough about slides, let's see the code. So we could see here is the structure. Due to the time, I already executed the command. So ng spa generator is our plugin. And then we have different files. We start analyzing the schema.json. Schema.json is a kind of a configuration that tells all the input files that we want to receive. We could, for example, define pattern to say, for example, that all the names of the application that we are to generate has to follow a specific syntax. In this case, could be whatever name, but the suffix must be -spa. We can provide default values, and we can provide required fields. What does it mean? This translates that when we generate or we execute our generator, here is what translates in the UI the schema that we defined before. So we can see my app, and on purpose I don't use the suffix. Then prefix for our Angular application, mail, Superman team, right. And then we can see that in the console we have a dry run. So always when we execute an NX command, we use a flag dry run. That means that we can check if everything is correct in the output, but nothing is executing, because we have to click on the run button before that. And it's cool, since we used in the schema a pattern for the name, here we can see, we get warned, look, the name you provided does not match the rule that you defined. So if I add SPA as I wanted, I can enforce this naming convention. And now the generators go through. And we can see what it will come out, all the output files that will be generated. Again, it's in dry run, so nothing is generated. I can check it, and if it's right, I click on run, and it's go. Let's see now and check the generator itself. The generator itself has a custom function that gets executed when we execute the generator. First of all, here is the function. We have a normalize options. This is provided by default when we create a plugin, a generator plugin, and this simply gives us some utilities variable with the name of the application and the URL with the directory, if we use it or not, that we can then use for other functions. I like Mac. Start using since 2 weeks. Okay, then we invoke the application generator method. This comes from the Angular dev kit that provides a set of API that we can use to create an Angular application or a library, for example. And here we can see we give some of the files that we provided before through the schema. And then we simply give as an input to this method, and then this method will generate for us an Angular application. Interesting, for example, here we can define if we want or we don't want that the E2E test have been generated. This is also part from our schema. It's a flag that we can say if we want or if we don't want to generate also E2E tests. Add files is a local method that we can use to target a specific folder and then to enrich some template files. This is quite cool. In this very specific case, we take as a target files folder, and here we have, for example, our configuration files. We can see here that the variables are, for example, project root, root dir, and the name. These are the files that we provided through the schema. We can have multiple other files. Here, for example, I want to generate a YAML file for GitLab pipelines, and this has to follow a specific structure. Now, think about every team sparse around the world from our company that has to create these files. I bet you how many April sprites you want, it will never be exactly the same, or there will be always some mistakes here or there. Thanks to this, we can enforce these rules. We can so enrich these kind of template files, we can move them, and we can even rename folders. In the last client, they wanted to have the E2E default standard folder for the E2E test renamed into system tests because of legacy reasons and because they needed that. And this so has to be enforced through the whole company, through the whole teams. So instead of doing manually, we could use this Angular move generator method. It's another method provided always by the Angular dev kit that is a set of API provided within the NX Workspace set of features. And then it very conveniently takes a schema that takes the target file, what is the destination, and if we want to also update all the import path. That's it. We invoke this, and then all our newly generated Angular application will have the E2E test folder rename automatically, let's say, into system tests. And then we could have other different functions or so that I skip here because we don't have much time. But now, we created this schema, and let me run it just to prove that indeed it works. It's running in the backend, right? Yeah, we can see here in the apps folder, now we have our file generated. It's a brand new Angular application. We can see, first of all, that the E2E test folder is called system test, as the client wanted. We have here some default files. More interestingly, in our generated Angular application, we have the files that we set in the file folder that have been enriched with the data that we put it in the schema. For example, we get the GitLab CI YAML. We can see here is the name. And then in this case, we didn't provide any directory as a parent, therefore it's just flat like this. Or project JSON, not project YAML. Here is the team name, the email. So we can keep a structure and then enrich with dynamic data. and according to each project or each team. That's it. It's quite a challenge in 10 minutes to tell meaningful thing and enough things about NX generators, but if you have any questions, please feel free to reach me later or invite me for Aperol Spritz. I'd even be more happy for that. And this is the GitHub repo. You can play with it, or even in the future, if you get any other question, feel free to contact me via Twitter. Thank you very much.